In this video here, I'm going to demonstrate how the rail gun defeats the globe fake Earth and reveals the truth about where we live on this flat, God-given plane. I was debating Mr. Craig from Fight the Flat Earth, the man himself, Craig, Fight the Flat Earth. And we brought up the topic of the railgun. And he asked me, which do you think hits the ground first? If you drop the railgun projectile at your feet, or the one you fire from the gun itself? And right when he said that, I knew it's something I hadn't known. I hadn't really heard that before. I would think the one that got fired would land later than the one that's dropped um, from your hand to the ground. But they would land they would hit the ground at the same time. So I said, okay, that's interesting. I believe that. But then as we went further, I thought about these things, and and then he showed me a diagram how here's what happened. Okay, so I did not the greatest drawing as usual, but here's the rail gun, here's the projectile, and now on the drawing on the diagram that he brought, that he showed me, it just looked like that. It had the ground flat, of course, and it shows how the railgun projectile falls to the earth. They weren't using a railgun; it was more like a bullet from a regular handgun. But it doesn't matter. The railgun works better because it goes like 100 miles, I think, before it drops, or maybe 50 miles, 50 to 100 miles. It goes before it drops. So it kind of reveals things even more. But the diagram showed how, like, if you drop this bullet, instead of shooting it from the gun, if you're just standing there and you drop it, from the time it takes the time it leaves your hand till it hits the ground, that time is the same as it would take to hit the ground when fired from there. Bam! Hits the ground at the same time. Okay, but me being the visual-minded person that I am, it took me a second, 2 seconds to see the problem. For him was that in the diagram we have a flat surface. Okay, so it works. But how does that work when you add the curve of the earth? And then we debated back and forth. He just says it just follows the curve of the earth and drops. Yeah, but your ground isn't where it was when you started, from the time it left the railgun barrel, from the time it left your hand. That ground you started on ain't where you end up. Let's say this is 100 miles or 50 miles. I didn't do all the math. I'm just doing this video on the fly. But if we created a platform, so this is what I brought up to him. If we created a platform that was perfectly flat, a real level, not relative to the center of Earth, but a true level from point A to point B, 100-mile platform that we built, it would deviate from the Earth's curvature. So if we go 100 miles, it might look, it would look something like this. The Earth would begin to descend downward from the point we start. So when you account for that ground dropping, you're stuck with a problem, because your bullet has to drop a lot further down. I mean, it's like 2,000 feet of curvature if it travels 100 miles. It's got to drop an extra 2,000 feet within the same time it took to drop it from your hand to here. But for here, from your hand to the ground was maybe only 3 feet of a drop. Wherever here you got 3 plus 2,000. Whoops! Problem for you guys, not for us though. Works for us. Ground is the same 100 miles down as it was where we started. Projectile will fall and hit the ground at the same time you drop it out of your hand. But on the fake curve Earth, it's got to drop another 2,000 feet. It doesn't work, man. Then it won't hit the ground at the same time. You get it? yet another nail in the coffin of the fake globe Earth. Rest in peace.